The bread and butter of memberships really comes down to what is called products, or I can refer to as courses. This is the content that someone is consuming, they get access to. This is really what they're thinking about. If like I'm buying a course or joining a membership, this is the bread and butter of that. And there's a lot of nuance here, some different terminology we're going to get into. And so let's hop on the screen and get right into it. So it is referred to as products, but you can think of it kind of like lessons or courses. This is the stuff that someone would actually view. This is where your videos are, your lessons, your trainings. This is where your videos are, your lessons, your trainings, your assessments, all that good stuff. And so when you come into this area of products, it's going to look blank. And so we're going to first come over to create a product. If you are coming from Kajabi, you can actually import from Kajabi. If you're starting from scratch, you're going to click on start from scratch. And so now you have a few options. The think of these as kind of like placement builders. I will use one of these to work through it. If you go build from start from scratch, build your own, it's just going to be absolutely blank. Sometimes I find starting from either this sprint, marathon, or membership will give you a good idea and example of all of the elements and aspects that can be included into a product or these lessons, these courses. And so we're going to go ahead and start with a marathon course. It's just going to be longer, so you're going to see it's going to be more robust. I'm going to click on start building, and then you get to name this. And so I find the best ones are centered around some sort of skill or some sort of educational achievement that they can receive by having access to this membership or this course. And so I'm just going to call this awesome skill. Click on create, and it will generate basically demo content to give you an idea of what all can be built in here. And then it also gives you places where now you're just editing and replacing information as opposed to starting from absolute scratch. If we look at the structure now, you can see there are a couple different aspects here, but this view is outline. And so within the structure, you have these topics. And actually, we can see if I go into add new, you can see there's lessons, subcategories, assessments, and credentials. So from a structure, you've got these there's categories, subcategories, and lessons. This is the three-part structure there. If I want to create a new category, I actually come to the product structure, click on that little plus sign, and that's where you can create a category. These grayed out areas are categories. And I believe this just has category and lessons, but if I go ahead and create a subcategory, show what that looks like. Subcategory. You'll see that added to the outline here. And so depending on what you're teaching or the skill that you're delivering, it might make sense to have a subcategory. And then within your subcategory, you can then have lessons and assessments additionally there. There's just a lot of flexibility when it comes to content structure. There's no right or wrong way. There's just kind of different practices that people will follow. And the main thing is you want to build this in a way where it actually is enjoyable to consume the information. It has a sensible flow to it, and it really consider the experience of the person who's learning. What is going to be the path of education that is going to allow them to feel like, wow, I did learn it, and it transforms into an actual transfer of skill. So within that, there's certain topics which make sense to have subcategories, and there's certain where it doesn't. And then from an actual display, so I'm going to go ahead and add in a lesson here, and we'll call this our sub lesson. And so I'm going to do this so you can see what does it look like when it actually becomes live, because a lot of times that's what's determining how you want to arrange it and what you might consider best practice for your learners there. And so now we have our categories, introduction. We got a couple lessons under the category. We have a subcategory that I just called subcategory. And then we have a sub lesson all within this category there. And you can see you can have multiple of these categories, subcategories, and lessons. And so it doesn't have to be broken up. You might say, I'm just going to have it all under one and then have subcategories to break it up. But let's go ahead and preview to give you an idea of what this looks like when we see this on a page now. When you go to the preview area, you're going to get a big old banner on the top there that says you're previewing in admin mode. That's not what your students would see. there's a couple settings here which we'll cover in terms of the design, but when you're considering the structure, here's what it looks like for this style or this theme, if you will. Is you've got, that's your category. Here are your lessons within the category. Here's what a subcategory looks like, and here's what a sub lesson looks like. And then between the categories, there's sort of like a break in the design, so you can see them independently contained. For most items, it's absolutely sufficient to just have categories and lessons. It kind of takes up the most amount of space there. And it becomes like a sensible flow that you break things into categories and you sort of have lessons within the categories. Obviously, for certain experiences, maybe it makes sense to have a subcategory. Maybe you want to break up the assessment portion. So you sort of have, here's all the learning, and then here's the assessments. And they've got, one or however many assessments as part of it. Or the assessment could just be, the fourth lesson, as you will. But that's what it looks like for this theme as well. There's different designs, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So now, because we've started with a sort of like the template, if you will, starting structures, it's a little bit easier. There's more you're gonna have to delete, but it's kind of easier to conceptualize what you want to do. So then you want to know, how do I edit these items? Like, cool, I've got it. How do I edit these items? You just click into them. So if I click on introduction right now, it's going to open up this category. And so now if I want to rewrite that to, step one, whatever this might be, our getting started or overview or general piece there, you can add a description to it. You can add a thumbnail for it. And then you can see the contents that are nested within this here. We'll talk about visibility. And so with visibility, you can set this to any one of these hierarchies of structure. And that's maybe another reason why you consider more subcategories or more lessons or more categories, depending on how you want to release it. So by default, it's just published, which means they get access, they see it all. Then your options are draft. This is kind of if you're working on it, maybe updating information, you don't want them to see it yet. Then there's locked, which means by default, they don't see it until certain things are accomplished. And so this could mean they have to mark a previous post as completed or mark a previous category as completed. In this position, because this is the first category, you can't really lock it because there's nothing prior to this. But if we look at some future ones, if we look at some of the categories that were below this, then you'll see any category above it is an option to, have like what's the unlocking post or lesson there and what's the unlocking category for it. And then the last option for visibility is drip. So you can set it so that it's going to become available, but it's just time delayed. And you see what's the number of days or a specific date if you're doing whatever, a particular event, or it's a time-based event there. So if you had a like number of days, you might say this category gets released on day one. The next category gets released on, if you're doing a weekly, so this might be week one. And I might say, well, it kind of makes sense. I might have like the overview, available right away. And then week one releases on day one. And then week two releases on day 7 or day 8, depending on how you're tracking that there. And so those are the options for visibility. This can be, we'll get into this for individual lessons and posts and other things like that. But you can definitely run these settings. This settings area is going to look similar as we dive into other things. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll make this publish. So we'll make this week 1 as an example. Our thumbnail, there's the recommended dimension on there, 1280 by 720. Pretty straightforward if you want to create like a Canva template. That's what we commonly do, is create a Canva template, and so that way you can come back to the same sort of thumbnail design, and then you can see the contents as well in here. So I've saved this. So I'm going to go ahead and click into our welcome to the course. Just like I showed you before, when you click onto the title there, it's going to take you to the editor screen for it. And so within the actual course now, we have the option to upload just audio if you want to just have audio, or you can upload an actual video. This is probably most common, is to upload the video there. And then you've got the post detail. So here's the title for it. Here's the category, which you could select a category if you want to move it around. And then you've got the actual contents of the course. For visibility, you only have published or draft. So this is where that category, subcategory might come into play depending on how you want to release the contents. You've got the similar sort of thumbnail there. And if you upload a video, you can then you actually put a video thumbnail over the video as well. And you can have attached files, like if it's a PDF or something like that, you can attach files and it'll show up in the on the right side of the actual post. And so I'll go ahead and we haven't really edited this, which is fine. So I'll go preview. This is the individual lesson. So when you click into the lesson, what does it look like for the content there? And you'll still see that, preview and admin area. If there was a video, it show up on the top here. It actually shows you kind of the running sequence of information on that side. And we do have comments turned on, so you can see comments and instructor information. We'll go through how to edit and continue to change the look and appearance of those items. Let's look at subcategories now. And so you see subcategories, similar to categories, have that visibility setting. So this is where, depending on, like, you might be using subcategories because of different visibility settings, or you want, and they could be independent. A category can be released by drip, and then a subcategory could be locked and until they complete a certain post. So depending on how you want to release the information, that might be another reason to use subcategories. But otherwise, it's similar details to a category, the title, the description, and then I'll show you the contents. And in this case, the contents are just that single sub lesson that I added in there. If you go to the sub lesson, it's the same thing as lessons, where this is where you can have your video, your audio, your written content, set it to publish or draft, edit your thumbnails, as well as attached items there. Sometimes folks do wonder, how do you, if you have your video embedded with a different provider, like the upload video here, you see there's a few options within it. You can directly upload from your device. You can actually link if and it's going to actually try to import from the link. So for some reason you have it's in like a Google Drive or something like that, a stored area, you can actually just paste the link to the file in there, or you can use embed code. And so this is going to replace the like hosted, real file here with whatever you're embedding from. So if you already have it on YouTube or Vimeo or even Loom, you can just use the full embed code. It's not going to be the URL. It's going to be the full embed code in here, and it will replace the actual video object with your embedded video. So it makes it very handy if you've already put the content, for instance, inside of Loom, or it's already hosted on Vimeo. You don't have to download it and re-upload it. You can either, if you got Vimeo, you can import it directly over here, or you could use the iframe. It's worth noting, if you care about content security, when you upload, there's very strong content security. It's not easy to download or rip the video off. If you're using an embed code and you're using something like a YouTube or Vimeo, it's directly going to use the host's embed code. And so if you're on YouTube and it's, whatever settings are set with that YouTube video, it's going to be there. So I find that if you're using an embed from somewhere else, it's less secure. And then it also is a note there that they're not checking to make sure the content is yours. So hypothetically, you can embed other content from other sources there, and you just need to make sure that the content is actually legally embeddable and you're not stealing someone else's content there. But if you need to use really, the button says upload video, but in reality, you can embed a video as an option there as well. Now let's look at the two other types of content, which, let's see, we have a credential set up. Let's go for assessment first. I don't think we've got the concepts, some resources. So within here, you have the assessment and the credential. The credential we saw at the end there. The assessment is actually like a quiz style assessment. And actually, I should have mentioned it right there. There were a couple different options when it comes to the assessments. Helpful to note that I don't believe you can edit the type of assessment after you've created it. You can decide that if it's going to be an ungraded assessment or not. But I'm going to come back and actually add another assessment because I skipped over a setting there, and I want to highlight that for you. So you go add assessments. I'm going to call it quiz, but there's actually some different types. There's the assignment, which is you detail tasks out for them to do, and then they have to submit it or turn it in. And then there's a quiz, which is a question and answer kind of simple quiz style. So you do have both of those types of assessments. You have assignments, which they've got details and they're tasked to go do it on their own and then potentially submit it. Or you have just quizzes. With a quiz, it's a little bit simpler for the grading process there because it is like a multi-step quiz. And so you add questions, or you can actually import questions to set the series of the quiz there. And so you can say, okay, it actually requires a passing grade. And what is a passing grade? It could be 80%. You can set that thumbnail almost the exact same dimensions for most of the lessons here, and same thing for the assessments. And then you have kind of like the confirmation message and the fail. So what are they going to receive if they pass it? What are they going to receive if they did not pass it? And so now our options for building out a quiz are, I can add a question. It's one at a time. And if I toggle into that, you've got a multiple choice or single choice style questions. And then you can build this out. So I can add my choice. And you see it's kind of like, there's your question, there's your option, and you can continue to add those options. So if I said, these are written options, but you see, just build that out one at a time. And I might say the correct option is B. There's our question. But you can kind of see with this editor, you can make this a little bit more robust in terms of styling the fonts, even including images if you want. So your options can be images themselves, and you can get down to directly editing the code there. And you can add an explanation if you want around the correct option. So if they get it incorrect, it's sort of like letting them know why it was going to be the correct or incorrect answer there. And so then you can remove that. So this is the process to build it out. It's just a lot of clicking one at a time. If you have a formula where you're like, okay, I like my question one, that's a single choice, and I've got kind of like, I'm always going to have three options, for instance, it's a little bit quicker to then use the clone option here. So I go clone, and here's my question two, and I might be changing out the information, but it saves me a couple, aspects of clicking, because now I don't have to add option A. I don't have to add the three options. I'll just place in the answers, the options for the question there. The other probably fastest method to create a quiz assessment is to import questions here. And you do that with a CSV. So you'll download the sample CSV, you replace out the information there in kind of like an Excel editor or Google Sheet editor, any sort of CSV editor there. And then you can actually import the CSV based on the sample there, and it will build out this format. Question, what's the title of information there? Option one, or however many options are there, which one is the correct option, and all that sort of stuff. And so my recommendation for peace of mind, if you've got less than 5 questions, I might build out a template and just clone it a few times. If you have more than 5 questions, I would think through that. I would use the CSV importer option, because as you can kind of see, it can be a little bit cumbersome and a lot of clicking, a lot of copying, pasting, and typing there. And sometimes working from a spreadsheet is a little bit more streamlined and definitely saves some time there. We'll go ahead and save that as well. And the last post type is the credential. This is really them receiving a credential. So when they finish the course, they finish all of the assessments, they finish the education, you can then grant them a certificate of completion. And there's a few options by default, where it's just going to apply their information and allow you to it's going to use your company name. It's going to use the education, like the values that were already placed in there, their name, the company name, and whatever the description of the course was, or the thing that they were learning was. You can also create your own custom credential. So we have a template here, but so if I go ahead and edit that template, I can actually get into creating my own credential certificates, stylizing this and making it look unique to me and my course, which is a cool option there. Okay, so from here, so while I recommend and love just the default options, they do the trick. You can get into custom templates. You can build that out, add your own designs to it, and yeah, it's a cool extra feature that you can do to change the look and feel and style there. This covers everything you need to know when it comes to the products area or building out those courses, actually delivering the information inside of your membership area. Next up, we're going to be looking at the offer and how to now package this together to be actually able to sell it, get into some nuances there when it comes to currency and payments and all things buying and selling courses. And I'll see you on that next video over here.